Hello everyone, this is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to share my thoughts and opinions about why I believe relationships in the Black community are so dysfunctional, despite the fact that we focus so much on them. Most of the public discourse in our community is about love, relationships, and sex, and apparently we are bad at all three of those things. So for many years, I've wondered why we were obsessed with this topic, and not in any constructive, intellectual, or philosophical way that will resolve the issue at its core, but we were more so focused on the grievances, right? On the what, the who did what, and how the what affected the who or the individual in that situation. Only recently have we began to investigate the why of dysfunctional relationships on a large scale. We discussed self-hatred, we talked about internalized racism, paternal neglect, sexual abuse, mental health issues, etc. And unfortunately, these conversations usually end up in finger-pointing exercises where Black men blame Black women for raising damaged adults, and Black women blame Black men for neglecting, abusing, and exploiting them to the point where they can barely function as mothers or wives to raise healthy adults in the first place. Now, I talked about this before. I said that there are plenty of predators and soul snatchers in the Black community of both genders. Black women and Black men have both contributed to the current state of the toxic relationship dynamics because we have allowed our culture to be co-opted, bastardized, and weaponized against us. Whites and others who are not Black Americans have often criticized Black culture or lack thereof. But as I've stated before, we don't want to hear about how bad our culture is from the people who helped to destroy it in the first place. Like, mind your business and let us fix this problem on our own. Culture isn't just about the latest TikTok dances. It's not just about the latest fashions, hairstyles, fried chicken, African American vernacular, or the optics of culture. Culture is also about collective value systems which formulate the social contract. It's about family structure, tradition, language, education systems, spirituality, acceptable norms. It's about shared goals and the ways in which we protect the elements of our culture that are most useful and beneficial to the collective, especially the children. If your culture isn't centered around raising healthy, intelligent children who understand their purpose as future trustees of the culture, then your culture is dead, and you will see the madness that we have today. Young people who are addicted to drugs, they're promiscuous, they don't respect authority, they don't respect their elders. They're out here lost, and they don't have a sense of purpose. They need help, but they're too angry, they're too ignorant, or they're too lazy to accept it. The problem is that the cultural values of Black Americans have largely been fostered by capitalism and unresolved trauma from slavery because we were turned into a commodity to be exploited. We were exploited physically, sexually, economically, intellectually, spiritually, culturally, etc. So, for example, many of us use spirituality as a means to successfully navigate a demonic capitalistic system. And this system is ultimately corrosive to family, community, and culture in general. But we believe that praying for a new car or a good man is good spiritual practice. At the same time, we fiercely defend our rights to have sex with and procreate with anybody, with no regard for whether or not that person has a cursed bloodline of mental illness, sexual depravity, or violence. In contemporary Black America, Black excellence is synonymous with white acceptance and capitalistic accomplishments, which means that many of us believe that we are blessed by God because we can buy the newest model Benz, and not because we can use that Benz to provide transportation for children, the elderly, or the infirmed, but we can use that Benz as a status symbol for American citizenship. And in America, if you don't spend money, you're not American, right? And Black people have subscribed to this belief, hence our hyper-consumerism and our obsession with the optical illusions of success. And I'm not saying that it's wrong or it's a sin to want nice things. It's not. We need beauty and fantasy and magic to replenish ourselves after dealing with the challenges of life. But beauty for beauty's sake and greed for greed's sake and luxury for luxury's sake can devolve into a bacchanalian lifestyle that slowly but surely eats away at your identity and your spirituality and also your ability to connect with others. We saw this happen to DMX. We saw this happen to Whitney Houston, Jada Pinkett, and many other celebrities who descended into madness, depression, and despair after achieving wealth, fame, and success. Earlier, I mentioned language as a part of culture. Language is used to disseminate culture. It's used to share ideas and to solve problems and to preserve knowledge. It's used to express feelings and ideas. And if you listen closely, right, the language that we use to speak to each other, our children, our teachers, our spouses, our elders, the language, it reflects the toxic and dysfunctional relationship dynamics that haunt Black society. If you listen closely to the colloquialisms of our culture, you can hear the discontent and the contempt that we have for each other, especially for those of us who don't meet the standards of capitalism or white supremacy. You know, those of us who have darker skin, wider noses, kinkier hair. We use our harshest and most hateful descriptors for these individuals who do not meet the criteria for Black excellence, which is the complete homogenization and pasteurization of all things physical, psychological, and cultural, and even spiritual that distinguish us from the white ruling class. Hispanics, Arabs, and Asians have the same system because European colonialism is global. So in terms of value systems, the criteria that we use to evaluate each other is based on capitalistic ideals. The biggest, the prettiest, the shiniest, the most expensive, the straightest hair, the lightest skin, the biggest booty, the biggest wallet. And all of those things have their place, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting those things, I guess. But rarely in the conversations that we have about Black relationships do we talk about education, family, children, culture, community, economics. We think that breeding with a light-skinned or a white person is a guaranteed way to advance the race and give our children a better chance for success. In fact, dark skin and kinky hair is associated with poverty and struggle. So if a Black woman glues some Indian hair on her head or straightens out her kinks, then she can attract a high-valued man because she looks more expensive. If a Black man shaves the kink out of his hair with a Caesar haircut, he looks more cleaner, more presentable, more respectable, right? We wouldn't have to worry about complexion and phenotype as much if we had an insular culture that was self-sufficient and self-sustaining, where physical appearance was secondary to our ability to provide a safe, nurturing, clean, and affirming environment for our children so that they have the foundation that they need to develop the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes, and even the behaviors necessary to maintain and advance the culture using their intellect, using their ingenuity and their sense of compassion instead of their physical appearance and their swag, right? And so, there's nothing wrong with wanting beautiful children, but in Black culture, beauty ideals have been defined by white people, which means that the children that we create with each other will never be good enough according to their standards. And because a lot of us have internalized white supremacy, we unconsciously resent Black men and Black women who will produce children who look like us. This would not be an issue, again, if we had control over our economy, if we had control over our education and our communities, but we don't. So now here we are, bitter and angry with each other because we have not accepted the responsibility of making the necessary sacrifices to ourselves and our children to ensure their cultural and genetic survival, regardless of whatever plots and schemes our enemies have devised for us. We are our own worst enemy. Okay, we're at the mercy of a system that devours its own children and uses its bones as fertilizer for the next generation of Blacks who are striving for peace and prosperity, right? Now, I'm not saying that all Black people have toxic relationships. There are some fortunate Black folks who don't have to navigate through a Vietnamese minefield to find a loyal partner who shares the same values and is willing to put in the work to maintain a healthy, productive relationship. But, only approximately 25% of Black women are married, so that's not enough. Now, another element of culture is music, and music is the soundtrack for culture. If you listen to what we consider Black popular music today, hip hop and R&B, what language are the artists using to describe Black women and men? What values are being espoused on these songs? Do these songs celebrate love, marriage, family, children, and community? Or do they incessantly talk about one-night stands, vulgar sex, hookup culture, consumerism, drugs, violence, alcohol, and not catching feelings? And the rapper Mos Def, Yasin Bey, talked about this years ago. It sounds like a lot of these artists today, they want us to live like we're back on slave plantations, like a bunch of wild, horny animals that want to fuck and fight all day, right? What type of community will you have if people are afraid of catching feelings as if they're catching some sort of disease? Like even mammals, elephants, gorillas, and lions, they have better social mores than this. Because when you love someone or you care about someone, you'll be less inclined to hurt them. Because when they hurt, you hurt, right? But apparently slaves aren't supposed to have feelings. Remember? We're told not to catch feelings because the person that we want to have sex with is toxic, abusive, and dysfunctional. So why have sex with them in the first place? Why are we mutilating and defiling and disrespecting our bodies to try to attract people who are narcissists, whoremongers, and sociopaths? Why would we do that? Again, this is like plantation dynamics. There are plenty of situations, during slavery where Black people would try to ingratiate themselves to their abusive, narcissistic, sociopathic masters to feel safer or for some trinkets or something like that. So, it's the same dynamic. This also reflects the dog-eat-dog capitalistic mindset that promotes transactional relationships. You guys remember the tip drill video when, someone literally swiped their credit card in a stripper's booty crack? Our music tells us that Black bodies are nothing but commodities. The men are only good for their penis and their wallets, and Black women are only good for big booties, breasts, light skin, and hair. And again, that sounds like slave plantation dynamics. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a modern R&B or rap song on the pop charts where the artist uses tasteful, poetic language to describe their non-sexual, platonic friendship feelings for a person. Everything is one big orgy, and many Black people are too hypnotized by the lyrics and the bacchanalian lifestyle to see how their relationships are being influenced by this toxic music. The human body has organs and systems that coexist and operate holistically. If one of these components is damaged through disease or injury, the health of the entire body is compromised. If the respiratory system is damaged, the cardiovascular system will suffer as well, and so on. Black Americans in general have a dead Frankenstein culture that is comprised of decomposing body parts that operate independently but fail to function as a unit. So our arms come from one body, our head comes from another body, our legs come from a third body, our liver comes from a fourth body, and so on. And the limbs and the organs of our bodies come from different cultures, different identities, different values. And again, they operate independently of one another. The body of the Black collective is diseased because the systems that comprise the body politic are operating independently and with no regard for the health of the whole. The Black boomer generation, they were hell-bent on sacrificing collectivism for individual aspirations. In their minds, if they were the best individuals they could be, then society would benefit as a whole, which is antithetical to cultural preservation. Cultural preservation requires the curtailing of some individual goals, some dreams, some aspirations. Yes, you can still have the freedom to do what you want, but with limitations. Because your individual needs must not supersede or jeopardize the values of the collective. We see this dynamic a lot in immigrant and some Jewish communities where the women and the men are allowed to have individual accomplishments, right? They can go to college and have a career, but they still have to adhere to cultural values that will fortify their community, like getting married before having children, getting married, period, marrying within the culture, pursuing high-paying professions that will provide financial stability and much-needed services for the members of that community, doctors, lawyers, accountants, shopkeepers, etc. There's a balance between individual aspirations and collective benefits. In the Black community, by and large, there is no balance in this area or anywhere else. We believe that we have to sacrifice our collective needs for individual goals and vice versa. We believe that we have to erase our identities to peacefully coexist in a relationship. Yes, if you want to have a happy, healthy, egalitarian relationship, some compromises have to be made. We cannot always get what we want, okay? We have to be fair. We have to be diplomatic. We have to be focused on preserving the integrity of that relationship by not cheating, being abusive, being lazy, or being deceptive. Everybody has to pull their weight. The problem we have in our community is that Black men and women don't agree on who should be sacrificing what. Many Black women want financial freedom as an insurance policy in case the husband becomes an abusive curmudgeon, he gets sick, he starts cheating, or he doesn't earn enough money to sustain the family. Now, on the other hand, many Black men, they want complete control over the family. You know, a lot of Black men, not all, but a lot of Black men want to make sure that the financial and emotional investment that that has been used to create a family is worth them sacrificing access to other beautiful women, right? So now there's a tug of war between Black men and women who are conflating systemic oppression with relationship sacrifices. So any impositions on free will becomes a trigger point. We conflate making sacrifices for our partner and our children with massive limiting our freedom to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. It's like we are rebelling against each other as an act of rebelling against the system. But at the same time, we subscribe to the values of that system that has us at odds with each other in the first place. It's like a catch-22. Somehow, Black men and women, but mainly Black men, were convinced that the responsibilities of family and community was another form of oppression. And at some point, this may have been true because before industrialization, before the feminist movement, most women and men got married out of necessity and not love. So Black boomer men, some Black boomer men and some boomer women subconsciously rebelled against all cultural traditions that were vestiges of slavery and oppression, including marriage. And so we threw the baby out with the bathwater, but didn't have a healthy alternative or replacement. So we have been devolving into hedonism and madness because there is such a thing as too much freedom. We have too much freedom, okay? And people with too much freedom tend to become self-destructive and individualistic to the point where they don't want any responsibilities whatsoever. They don't want to be responsible for children or to a boss or to a spouse or society in general. They want to become anarchists or they'll become asocial or amoral. Cultural values establish the parameters for acceptable social norms and behaviors. And currently the values of our culture propagate hypersexuality, violence, irresponsibility, and immaturity. Now listen to the music, right? Watch the TV shows. Look at social media. We're all sitting around, gnashing our teeth in our pretty cars and our nice houses. But we're not getting to the root of the damn problem, which is the culture. Because culture is a foundation for any social or financial institution. A lot of us talk about toxic workplace culture and how it affects the morale of employees. Well, toxic social culture affects the morale of a society or on a macro and a micro level. So it doesn't matter how light your skin is, how big your booty grows, or how much money you have. If your culture is whack and anti-family and anti-community and anti-marriage, more than likely your marriage won't last, okay? We have to reshape and reimagine our religious values and practices, our political ideologies and agenda, our educational system, our entertainment culture. And we have to build an independent, autonomous, and self-sufficient economic infrastructure in order for us to see an improvement in our relationships, in our children, in our community in general. Otherwise, we're going to keep circling around the toilet bowl on this issue. You're going to keep seeing social media posts and think piece after think piece after think piece about why Black men ain't this, why Black women are that, passport bros, men going their own way, divestors. It's like we're circling around a toilet bowl without addressing the issue, which is the culture itself. Without culture, you have nothing. I mean, that was the first thing that was taken away from us during slavery. So we have to put that back in order to fix our relationships. If we're not willing to do that, and we're not willing to sacrifice some of our individual goals and aspirations to maintain the community and culture, then stop complaining about it. if you're not willing to make certain sacrifices and to limit yourself and to put other people's needs before your own, then don't complain about not having a man or woman. You know, a lot of us, we look back on the 50s and 40s and 30s and we see married couples, right? Black married couples in the community. We see father, mother, child, man, woman, child in the home. And a lot of us are not aware of the amount of sacrifices that both people had to make. The husband made sacrifices and the wife made sacrifices. Unfortunately, in many instances, the wife made more sacrifices than the husband, and she was left holding the bag at the end of the day. And that is where some of the resentment from Black women comes from, seeing their mothers sacrifice everything for men who were ungrateful, were abusive, and so on. So that's an issue. But, you know, back in the day when we had the man, woman, child, father, mother in the home, it wasn't always peachy keen. Okay. You know, the mother had to sacrifice her own personal aspirations to be a homemaker sometimes, to take care of the babies, to make sure the house was clean. I'm not saying we have to do that now because, you know, we have the resources to pay for help. We can pay for maids and nannies and things of that nature. But in other cultures, you know, they encourage you to get married before 30, 25 in some cases, because the dating pool shrinks as you get older and older. And the Chinese know this. The Jews know this. The Indians know this. But Black Americans have this Peter Pan mentality where they think that they can flit around and play for their 20s and most of their 30s. And then when they wake up in their 40s and want to find a man or a woman, they don't know why there's piss in the drinking water. Like, it's common sense. And Tia was complaining about this the other day. Was it Tia? Tia was saying that the dating pool is trash now. She was married to her husband, Corey, for a long period of time. I think about 14 years. She was married to him for a while. And so she never really had to deal with like social media dating or dating in a social media age. And so she was like, yeah, the men are acting like a prize. They're not courting anymore. I mean, this is what happens when you're in your 40s. And, you know, you are one of many women who were desperate to find a man, and the men can smell your desperation. So now they know that you think they're a prize. So they're going to act like they're a prize. They're not going to pretend. Why pretend? They know that you want them more than they want you because they have plenty of options. They have options in their 30s and their 20s. So why would they bend over backwards to accommodate your needs, right? To make you feel special when they can get more out of you by you thinking that they're special, by you putting them on a pedestal. So you're out here in your 40s. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to get a divorce at all. But people have to be realistic. When you're in your 40s and 50s and your 30s even, it is much harder to find a good partner because good partners tend to marry in their 20s, right? You think you have time to do whatever and play around, and you don't. Now, I'm not saying that all Black women who aren't married in their 30s and their 40s are wasting time. That's not the case. Sometimes just wrong timing, bad luck, whatever. But by and large, if you are somebody in your 40s and 50s and 60s, like Shirley Strawberry, you're going to have to dig through some garbage to find something. Maybe a widow or a divorcee or somebody who, whatever, has done the work to become a better partner. But the older you get, the more stuck in your ways you are, for the most part. So, yeah, if you're in your 20s and you want to get married, and marriage is more important than romance and enjoying your 20s and hopping on random penises and vaginas, then you would get married younger. You would find the person who has the same values you do, who wants the same things you do, who is a hard worker, who's a good person, good character. They're healthy, they have integrity. Find that person and partner up with them when you're younger versus waiting until you get older for maybe, you know, I'll find somebody. You'll find somebody who's been divorced 3 or 4 times and they have baggage now. Like, imagine dating a man in his 40s who just got out of a 15-year relationship. Do you think he's going to want to commit to you immediately after that? No, he's not going to. He's going to be traumatized. The same thing for women. So use your common sense, right? And be prepared to make sacrifices for what you want. We have not had a conversation as a collective about where we want to be moving forward as a people, right? We don't have those conversations. The Black Boule has dropped the ball. The Black Boule are just interested in being the court jesters in the king's court. They don't want to help the Black collective. They want to be on MSNBC and at the White House being the first Black this and the only Black that. That means nothing to the rest of us because it's not benefiting any of us. So, you know, not to hate on your accomplishments, that's great and everything, but why do you want the collective of Black people to celebrate your individual accomplishments if it's not going to benefit the collective? That's for you, right? That's me being here is making the rest of you guys look good, even though it's not providing any tangible benefit to your communities. The fact that I'm here as the first Black this gives you hope. What kind of narcissistic shit is that? That's insane. This is why I don't worship celebrities. I don't worship people with lots of money or celebrities. They're just regular human beings with more resources. Treat them as such. Don't hate on them, but don't lay claim to or take ownership of their accomplishments either. Unless they're doing something for your community, right? Or for the community, the children, the women, the elders, the infirmed, then let them celebrate their individual accomplishments on their own. A lot of the Black excellence that we talk about is optics. It's not really tangible, and it doesn't really help the collective as a whole. Again, I'm not saying that people who are successful are obligated to help those who are not as successful. I'm not saying that at all. But do not ask the collective or society or the groups of Black folks to celebrate your individual accomplishments as if that's doing something for them. That's just narcissistic supply for you. You getting your degree and you working at a Fortune 500 company is not a political statement. And more than likely, these types of people become gatekeepers, and they prevent other Black folks from getting those same positions. So again, your individual accomplishments means nothing to me. This especially applies to the boomer generation. The Black elders who were obsessed with being the first Black or the only Black, and they pretty much, didn't create a path for other Black folks behind them. They wanted to be put on the pedestal and say, see, the reason why we're doing good is because I'm doing good. I am the individual symbol for Black excellence. And so I'm not going to help you guys get to where I am or even teach you how to recreate this within your own communities. No, but I want you to celebrate me though. Because if you're up here with me, then you can't celebrate me for being me, right? You can't celebrate Oprah if you're Oprah too. That's not how they feel about it. You can't celebrate Oprah if you're up there with her. You can't worship her if you're on the same level as her, right? Not just her alone, but lots of Black celebrities of that generation had that mentality. So yeah, our culture, again, needs to be refined. We have to refine our culture. It has to be deconstructed, analyzed, and improved upon, because it's the main reason why our relationships are garbage. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to reading your feedback. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.